You know what? Honestly, I had no idea. I know you're the hiccup lady on the show, but how did it actually happen to begin with?
I had auditioned for the show a bunch of times, and I didn't get any parts. And then I hosted the Leo Awards, which is an award show in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And after that, they called and said, "We want to cast Ellie," and I didn't even have to audition for it. It was just like, "Oh, okay." And then it was like, "Well, I better start hiccuping."
But was the hiccup, was that part of the script, or did you come?
Yeah, that was. I remember I was in that scene. They wrote that in, and it basically said that her character just can't stop. She can't stop hiccuping.
Ellie and I lived together in Los Angeles, but we never had a chance to be on camera before. Then she gets a part in Atlantis, and I never even got to do a scene with her, and you did.
Wait, what do you mean? That was
Novak went to Atlantis too, so I did SG1, and then I was like, "Hey, Paul, they called me for Atlantis." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Nah, I'm not in the scene."
No, I'm not in the scene.
You did Atlantis as well?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were only in SG1.
No, I have a life beyond you, Gary.
And how many times did you hiccup in the scene?
It was farting. It was farting at Atlantis.
I fart in every scene, but this was actually I only hiccuped once in Atlantis, and it was at the very end of my interrogation. I was interrogated.
If they do the new iteration of the show, they're probably not going to use a hiccuping.
I think they might. And it's not. I think if they do it, they are doing a new show, which is amazing.
Yes.
You know,
the fans finally are getting what they want, what they demanded.
Right?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy for the fandom most of all.
Well, I did go. I went to one convention that you told me about.
Yeah.
I went in, and I couldn't believe.
I didn't tell you about it. I got you to do it. I helped you.
Because it was such a small part, and it was like everyone was going Novak, and I was like, "You saw me?"
Yeah, no, they love it. Yeah.
When I first got approached years and years ago to do a convention here in Vancouver, I said, why? They don't.
I'm too small.
I was like, they don't know me. I just used to think the camera would go by me like this, would just like pass by me. Yeah. And they said, no, they know you. And I walked into the hotel lobby, and they started screaming.
That's crazy.
Awesome. But you know what? In fairness, when I became an actor, the reason I wanted to be an actor, remember, you know the movie Christmas Story?
Yeah.
And you know that one elf is like leaning over and going, "Hey kid, come on up." Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I want.
You want to be an elf?
And so
what is Christmas?
That, like, I was like, that's
we can arrange that.
I want. I should have had. I
don't want to be Santa. I want to be that scroungy elf.
Yeah. It is nice as an actor that people appreciate the smaller roles because it's
They do.
Of course they do. Yeah.
I remember when I had done an episode called Torment to Tantalus in SG1, and I was the first person to go through the Stargate, Ernest Littlefield, in a deep sea diving suit, and it was back in the 20s. Back in the day, everyone was playing multiple different characters on SG1, and I never got to do another character after that. And I said to Martin Wood after I got Atlantis, I go, "How come I never went back in the show?" And he goes, "Because you played Ernest Littlefield. You're the first person to go through Stargate." And I'm like, "So?" And he's like, "Have you been to a convention yet?" I'm like, "No." And he goes, "Oh, you'll see." And then I went to a convention, and I saw. It's amazing. I had no idea the fan base was that huge, and it was such a blessing. We've traveled all over the world doing conventions and meeting fans, and I have pictures of myself holding little kids by their ankles, and now they're taller than me.
I went to visit my brother in Winnipeg, went by his law office, and he said, "Oh, this lawyer wants to meet you." I go, and this woman's like, "Hello." She goes, "I'm a big fan of Stargate." And it was.
Oh yeah.
And even though this was years ago now, it's just like the show still has that appeal.
You know what I think was kind of like the common thread between all of us on the show was they sort of knew our comedic chops, and they would give us funny stuff to do. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, both of you are hilarious, and they. I think the writers are smart, and they see that, and they amp it up a little bit, and it was very, for me, Beckett got lots of comedy and lots of drama, a little bit that now obviously being Scottish, you get to do the Scottishisms, which was a ton of fun, and we had a lot of laughs doing the show.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the longer I was on the show, you just kind of get to know the writers, the producers, the people people, like, that was the thing about Stargate, was that all the ADs became directors and producers, and I would go and hang out at the offices and chat with people.
They didn't like that.
I didn't have the amount of time you guys.
Jonesy's coming.
No, but you're saying that they saw you on stage being funny, and they just went, "Oh, just let's just get it." Yeah, because they knew what they wanted.
Ellie, funny.
I'm funny.
You're funny.
And I found that for me, there's a certain kind of style of comedy that you had to do in Stargate, which was you couldn't take any of the laughs from, RDA because he was the main guy.
Yep.
And you had to kind of surf this sort of, be funny but not too funny, but know the tone of it.
Yep.
It was a really cool exercise in trying to figure out. Okay.
Trying to hold back?
Yeah.
For you? It must have killed you, Gary.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sit here.
Let's unbutton this off. This is gorgeous.
Just be in the middle, Gary.
Look at this thing about Vancouver. Okay, Gary, sit here. Yeah, Gary, sit in the middle. Think about Vancouver. It rained like a monsoon yesterday, and then today it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's stunning.
Yeah.
So, do you think you'll be on the new show?
I should be. Yeah. No, I don't know. No.
I was in SG1 Atlantis and Universe.
Oh, you were in your
Yeah, see?
Gary was in all of them. Yeah. No, I think it's going to be a new cast. It'll be exciting to see what they do with the show, obviously. And every episode you go through a gate, you don't know where you're going to go. And that's why it's so exciting to read the scripts when you get them. You just open it and you're like, where are we now? That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're going to need somebody to open and close the gate. So I don't know what they're going to do there.
No.
That's...
Maybe you'll be mentoring someone.
No, he wasn't very good at it.
Yeah. It's like in my career anyway, starting off, getting teacher roles and then moving to the principal and then eventually the school janitor.
Did you start off as teacher?
Yeah.
Not student?
Yeah, no. Not student. Teacher, principal, and eventually school janitor.
I played a judge. Now, when you start to get a judge, then that's
lawyer,
it. Yeah, it's over.
judge.
It's over.
Is the death knell.
Yeah.
I am a judge now.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
And then
it's
convicted.
Mrs.
not Chris Judge, a judge.
Convicted felon.
How did you first? What was the first thing you did? What made you? What gave you the acting bug?
I was working in advertising as a creative director back in Ontario, and I was just fine and happy with what I was doing. And then I just randomly took some improv classes with Second City, and they hired me, which was a complete shock to me.
Second City was huge then. That was after SCTV, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So then I worked with them for 2 years, and then they offered me the job at Expo '86.
Did you think it would just be a hobby, like when you were just doing it?
At first I was just doing workshops, but I didn't know that they were actually watching the people in the workshops to kind of keep an eye on people who were any good at improv. And next thing I know, they approach me and they go, "We got a spot in a national touring company. Do you want it?" And I was like, "What?" I couldn't compute it. I didn't know why that was happening, but I said yes.
And is that how you two met, doing improv?
We met doing improv.
We met in Vancouver when I was working at Vancouver Theatre Sports, and then Ellie moved out from
Winnipeg.
Hey, were you already an actress when you moved out from Winnipeg?
No, I moved out here to go to the Vancouver Playhouse Acting School.
Oh.
So I got my degree of political studies. I was going to be a lawyer, and then I thought, no, I'm going to try and be an actor because I'd always wanted to since I was a kid. And then I got into the Playhouse, so I moved out here. Big mistake, should have been a lawyer. Decent famine, but
it did help you. You were president of our union too, which I'm sure you're.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
But the when I was doing theater school, we did an improv exercise, and I had no idea that I was good at improv. But I remember that day. I remember the scene. I was wearing all white, and it was a scene about heaven, and I was at the pearly gates, and the guy was like, am I supposed to let you in? And I'm like, I'm in white, and the whole class was laughed, and then the teacher came up to me after and said, you're good at that improv thing.
Oh, you got your first laugh.
Yeah, got my first laugh from
Then you're hooked.
Serious theater students. And then
well, really, your costume got you your first laugh.
Well, no, but I acknowledged the costume, and I picked it out, so I'm taking full credit for it. But I met him at Theatre Sports, and we had a long, many, some of my funniest memories are with you.
So many shows together.
Can I tell you my funniest memory of Gary, and then I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, let me hear it.
We're on stage, and we're doing the scene, and he was playing my daughter, and
That makes sense. Total makes sense.
And
What?
and he said, tell me the story of the wolves, Daddy. Me, his dad. And he was my daughter, and he was just looking up at me. And I just remember laughing and laughing and laughing.
I said, tell me the story of the wolves, Daddy.
Made me laugh. But what about you, Paul? Because I met you and you were an actor. And you were always like the funnest guy to hang around with.
Yeah.
Well,
But I didn't know
thank
you were like a comedy guy on screen.
Sometimes, I've been fortunate to play lots of different things, but I'll say, I come from a huge family, so one of 7 kids, and my sense of humor is from my parents, I think, mostly.
Just to stay alive.
Just to stay alive. Number 6 out of 7. I remember.
Hello, I'm here.
My mom would yell up, we'd be downstairs playing or whatever, and dinner's ready, and it'd be like a six boys, by the way. A dash of us diving over the couches, and I remember just getting to the top of the stairs, just feeling my brother grab the back of my pants and dragging me down and stepping on me and lining up, and I'd come last, you know what I mean? And they'd spill like my milk into my plate. I'd come downstairs and I'm like, there's milk in it. It's good. My mom would be like, it's all going the same place. You're fine. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh wow, that's a movie, Paulie. You gotta write that stuff down. I love that story.
No, it was.
God, 6 boys running upstairs for dinner.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a lot of haggis.
My mom's. That's a lot of haggis, Gary. my mom's a saint, and she would make lunches for us every day, and everybody had something different. We'd have our names on it, and as kids, you don't even think about that. You just kind of grab your lunch and leave. Yeah. You don't go, wow, what an amazing. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for lunch, Mom. Right? You're just like, out you go. Yeah. Dinner. It was like a mess hall. Yeah. Every day. My dad and my mom barely got any time alone. So.
Can you? Oh, that story.
Well, they had time alone at least 6 times.
Seven times.
What about that time you found out about your brother?
That's right. Yeah. I'm number 6 out of 7, and my younger brother's 8 years younger than me, Mike, and he's awesome. But back in the day, brought up Catholic, I had no idea my mom was pregnant, none. And then one day, December 8th, when my brother's birthday just passed, we were kids and we were in Ontario and coming out of a snowbank in our little snowsuits, and my dad picked us up in the car, and he never picked us up. He's always at work. He honks the horn. I'm like, God. He goes, right, what the hell are you doing? Get in the car. And we're like, well, and he looks at it. He goes, I got a surprise for you. Chris and I look at each other. We're like, finally, mini bikes. We're getting mini bikes. We've always wanted mini bikes. And so we get back in the house, and he goes, okay, he goes, come on upstairs, take our snowsuits off. And everyone's upstairs in the living room we never got. And go, my Uncle Willie, my Aunt Ann, everyone there. And they're smoking, and there's a basket there on the thing. And we come upstairs, and he goes, come up here. And we're looking at it, and he goes, that's your wee brother, Mike. I'm like, what? And he goes, that's your wee brother. I'm like, that's our brother? And Chris and I look at each other, and so Chris looks at my dad and goes, so no mini bikes? My dad says, what the hell are you talking about? And then I just kind of like looked at him for a minute, and Chris and I looked at each other, do you want to go downstairs and play? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And that was it. I'm like, what? I said to my mom, what did you tell us? Like, I didn't even know. I was 8, And she goes, well, we just didn't talk about those type of things back then. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about like an addition to the family.
Yeah.
Wow.
He actually is a doctor. So.
Yeah, that's right.
God bless him.
Well, you're hilarious. He's one of the funnest guys to hang out with.
Well,
whenever I go to conventions, oh my God, if I know Paulie's going to be at the convention, I'm like, okay, I'm sorted. Yeah. It's all good. Yep.
It's fun, and we met so many different people during the convention. We talked about, for me, like one of my favorite moments ever at a convention was I was in Ireland doing a signing at this comic book store called Forbidden Planet. I'd done a convention in London. I wanted to go to Ireland, and we were in Dublin. Actually, no, we were in Dublin, and then we went to Belfast, and we're in Belfast, and there's a dichotomy with the basically the class systems and everything there. And in Belfast, they don't have quite as much money, and there's a big lineup to come and see me. And there's this little boy, and I love kids, and I look over, and he's got a little toucan. Every time I see him, he's like, give me the thumbs up and everything. And finally comes up to me, and I go, how you doing, buddy? He goes, oh, I'm grand, sir. This is grand. Dr. Beckett's my favorite character. I said, that's fantastic. And I go, what can I do for you? What would you like? And he goes, oh, nothing, sir. It's my birthday today. I just wanted to give you a piece of my birthday cake. And he had a piece of birthday cake, and he put it down for me. I go, well, that's for me? And he goes, yeah. And he walked by. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I go, where are you going? I go, did you want a picture? He goes, oh, no, sir. We don't have any money. And I could see his mom, and I could tell that he didn't have a lot of money, And I just said, I looked over to mom. I said, would it be okay if I give him a picture for his birthday? And the little boy was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, sir. I go, yes, you can. This is from Dr. Beckett. This is a gift. And I gave it to him. And the look on his face, he just had the picture and just walked away. And just it just made it for me. It just kind of, I always remember that. Like, the kid broke my heart, and he was just a little sweetheart. And,
You know, what's so great is that you get like a show like this with the kind of fans. It gives you the opportunity to get to do something like that, right? And to let someone feel.
It's a sweet moment, you know. And what a little. You know, he tried to poison me with the cake. Right. But no, he didn't. It was a lovely moment. But I always remember that was one of my favorite like fan moments. But I've had so many, but that's one of them. How about for you?
I've had so many people come to my table and just say that, you know, they were going through really tough periods in their life, and then they would just sit down and watch 10 seasons of Stargate, and it got them through it.
It's true.
And it never occurred to me that would ever happen. Like people that a show could impact people like that. But that's happened so many times that it's almost become the norm.
Was that before or after you sold the chocolate bar that I signed?
It was Jaffa cakes. It was
Jaffa.
It was Jaffa cakes. He brought a package of Jaffa.
No, I didn't bring them. Someone gave them to me.
Gave them to him.
And he came over to my table. I'm going to take the story over. We're in Dragon Con. He comes over to the table. He goes, "Are you going to eat those?" I go, "No, I don't really like Jaffa cakes." I go, "Do you want it?" He goes, "Yeah." And he like it. And he goes, "Do you sign it for me?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Sign them." So I signed it, and then he sold it at his table.
He's like, "Where are the Jaffa cakes?" I go, "Oh, I sold them."
I sold it.
What? Oh my God, that's why I got you to sign it. Plus, I signed it.
You're no dummy. He used to go to Value Village, and I remember one day being at Improv, and you were like, "Do you want a pair of shoes? I got the pair of shoes here." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." He goes, $5. For like, for 3.
Gary's a wizard. I've been thrift shopping with Gary. It's amazing.
You are.
Yeah, he loves it. He's got great style.
I so regret.
Even bring me in on it.
No. That's just so embarrassing.
Well, it's a hobby, right? I mean, lots of people do that on the internet. I remember my friend Mike Roberts. He played at Chester and Adam's Family. He used to do eBay, and he would like just buy stuff to sell it and just kind of like move it around. And he didn't even care if he made money. He just like to kind of
kind of a hobby sort of thing.
Yeah. You know a funny story about Mike Roberts? God rest.
Was he in SG1?
Well, here's the funny story. He phones me up one day and says, "Oh my God, I'm finally auditioning for Stargate." And I was like, "That's great, Mike." And I go, "What's the part?" And he goes, "Oh, it's this kind of odd little alien, kind of weird, you know, anxiety-ridden alien or whatever." And I go, "Oh, you'll be great." Yeah. He goes, "Can you tell me like any tips on auditioning for it?" And I go, "Just be yourself." I said, "It's all in the writing. If they've brought you in, they know you're funny. Just read it, right?" He goes, "Okay, great." So he goes in, reads, calls me up. He says, he goes, "Oh my God, I killed. It went great. Now I'm just waiting to get confirmation to get cast, right?" So a couple of days go by, and of course, you know within a day or so if you've been cast, right? And Mike hadn't been cast, so he's like, "I haven't got a call. They haven't called me." And I go, "I don't know what to tell you." So, and I said, "But I'm in this episode because I had the script with me, right?" I go to shoot when I go in for my days, I walk up to Will Waring, who was the director for that episode, and he goes, "Guess what? Guess who we got to play the alien?" And I was like, "Who?" He goes, "Wallace Shawn."
Oh yeah.
And I said, "Wallace Shawn?" You know, the guy from My Dinner with Andre. And I go,
Princess Bride.
I said, I'm Princess Bride. I said, my buddy, Mike Roberts, auditioned for that. He goes, "Oh, he was fantastic." He goes, "But funny story, he's auditioning for Joe Malazzi and Paul Mooley, and they're watching him audition, and Paul writes down on a piece of paper, reminds me of Wallace Shawn, slides it over to Joe reads it, and writes, 'Think we can get Wallace Shawn?' and slides it up, and they contacted Wallace Shawn's agent, and he was doing a play, but he was free one day, and they flew him up, and that's how Wallace Shawn got the part, because Mike Roberts reminded them of Wallace Shawn, and I said, "You idiot, you were so good, you were as good as Wallace Shawn."
Don't play it like Wallace Shawn.
It was pretty funny.
He likes that story-ish.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so funny. And that was the other thing about SG1 and Atlantis and Universe, they gave so much work to so many Vancouver actors. Oh my God. And if they liked you, they just brought you back automatically. All you have to do is do a decent job, and they'd be like, oh yeah, you're coming back.
Yeah. I think that's the thing about Vancouver actors too. Like, I just know that I'm gonna, do the scene well and quickly, and they're gonna get their day, and they're gonna be done with me. Like we get the opportunity to work on so many things. You just go.
Yeah, we have a great talent pool here.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing talent pool. We're very fortunate, and I think when people come up here, I think they're quite surprised. And the crews are amazing.
Yep.
And when it's not raining, look at this.
I think the thing that surprised me most about Stargate, but I didn't realize it until I would do other shows. You'd get like a couple of days in between episodes. You might get a couple of days on another episodic, and you walk on, and now you're like, okay, who are these people? What's the vibe? I don't know anybody. And I realized how much with
Canada geese.
With Stargate, it was a big family. Everybody knew each other. So you walk in and go, hey, how's it going? Like everybody.
Oh yeah.
We all knew each other, and it was such a difference being on other shows where you had to kind of suss it out.
Yeah. There's so many Vancouver people that would feel.
Yeah. And for us being on Atlantis and coming over and then having the SG1, crew, like people like yourself and Michael Shanks and Judge and RDA, they were so ingratiating. Amanda as well, just like took us under their wing, and they were just awesome when we go to Comic-Con and stuff. They just just led by example. We had them to mentor us, which was awesome.
It's really true that it's number one on the call sheet sets the tone.
Yep.
And if a set is great, it's because the lead actor is.
Yeah.
So here's the question, because Gary and I were already doing comedy, we were kind of in the comedy world when we were kind of plucked out of that to play these roles that had a comedic side to them. But you were cast in kind of, you had some dramatic stuff, but kind of led towards comedy. Do you think that they built on that when they got to know you? Or? I
remember shooting the pilot. Probably like 10 days into it, Martin Wood said, listen, can you go up to the writer's room? Damien Kindler wants to talk to you about a big Beckett episode in like episode 6. I'm like, oh, I'm in episode 6, Yeah. So I went up there and he just wanted to talk to me a little bit and about Scotland and things like that. And I had a big episode called Poisoning the Well. And I think that was sort of the testing grounds for me. But it was quite a dramatic episode, but it had some comedy in it as well.
Yeah.
And I think, I worked really hard in that episode, and I think they saw that I had some chops, and then they started writing more for me, And I think the more you pop, so to speak, they write more for you. It's just like the character Grodin didn't work out, and then they recast, and they got Zelenka, they got David Nykl, and he popped right away. And I think episode called 38 minutes, and he did a great job, and he did the Czech thing, and I had the Scottish thing going, and it just worked. For whatever reason it worked, and people related to the character, And
I think Nykl told me that originally when they wrote his character, he was Russian,
right?
And David Nykl is Czech, so he just changed it to Czech, and then he would speak in Czech.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, this is great," because it was like so authentic, rather than just a Russian accent,
Yeah.
Like we've done many times in that improv scenes.
Yeah. And I think for me, things changed when. RDA had back problems, so he couldn't do the action sequences anymore. So they decided he was going to be the general and stay on the base, and that's when they brought in like Ben Browder and to make the fourth of the SG1 team. And God bless him. Thank you so much, RDA, that when he said, okay, if I'm going to be the general on the base, then I want Gary's character to be my kind of right-hand man.
Wow.
And that's
awesome.
That's how suddenly I was in way more scenes from like season 7 or 8 beyond, because it went 10 seasons. I was in like tons of scenes because I was with him. And,
it's cool.
And that was him. He was like, no, making my. But I will tell you, in this episode called 2010, when they went into the future, and the Stargate was like a tourist attraction in the future. Right?
Was it?
Yeah, it was. And I was the tour guide, and they come in from the future. They come in from the future, and they walk in, and I recognize him, and I go, Colonel? And RDA looks at me and he goes, Walter? And my name wasn't Walter. he just said, Walter? And I thought, have I read the script wrong? Is there somebody standing behind me? Walter? Like, why is he calling me Walter? And of course, you can't stop the scene, so I just carry on.
Yeah.
And I'm not kidding. Scene ends, they go, Rick, that was great. Just one thing, Gary's character is not called Walter. And he goes, well, it is now. And then he leaves. Then he leaves. And they look at me and they go, well, I guess you're
Okay,
Walter. And I go, what?
Yep.
And then my name, I don't know if you know this, but my last name, Harriman, it used to be Davis. I was Norman Davis. So already got changed to Norman Walter Davis. Then in a scene with Don Davis, General Hammond, he told me to open the iris, but he called me an airman because I was in the Air Force, and he would go, open the iris, airman, open the iris, airman, and they kept saying it like that's how he pronounced airman. They kept going, Don, can you do it again? Open the iris, airman, and finally they just sent him away, and they said, well, it sounds so much like Harriman. Let's just change Gary's name to Harriman. And I'm hearing this and I'm going, what are you talking about?
I thought I
He
was
said,
Norman.
Well, you're Walter Harriman now because Don can't pronounce the word Harriman. And that's how I became.
Hey, and it worked out for you.
And it worked out for me. Yeah, and I have 8x10s of myself with the name tag Norman Davis and Walter Harriman, like two different.
That my friends, is a collector's item.
Crazy?
Shall we walk?
Yes,
Yeah.
let's walk.
I don't know if you. I don't know if we can tell this story. Can we tell this story? I remember.
I don't know.
I'm going to say it. Wait, it's a story about you. Is that wrong?
Right.
Okay.
So that's with Mario as a party?
Yeah.
The first episode, I get a call from my agent saying they need to do an emergency casting for a recurring role on Stargate. And I'm like, what? And then I'm like, okay, I'll go down and do it. And then I get a call, no, it's canceled. It's okay. And I'm, what happened? And I talked to my friend Gary. And Gary tells me the story. Can I tell you the story how I remember it?
Yeah.
He tells me the story. He goes, well, I was in the background of the scene, and it was a long day, and I was tired. I just put my head down for a second.
No, I just closed my eyes. I literally went and just closed my eyes.
And that was like, and the director ended up coming right up to you. Okay, I don't know this part. What is it?
Okay, so basically, if fans know the layout of the SG, I was up in the control room, and the director was down in the gate room with all these extras, and I was so tired. I've been sitting there for hours, and I just closed my eyes. I wasn't even asleep. That was the thing. It was the one time I closed my eyes, and he threw a nickel at the glass. And it just goes, ting! And I woke up, and he's looking at me, and he just goes, like, and I was like, oh my
No,
God.
Chief.
Like, he went like this. He went like... And I had such a shot of adrenaline that I was awake for and then I came in the next day and I was like, okay, that's not happening again. Then it happened again. I did it 2 days in a row. That's why you got that emergency call, because I closed my...
How did you get out of it?
Yeah.
I did nothing. Mario went to the producers and said, get rid of that guy. And they said, no.
You know, it could have been, I could have been Bernice Harriman or whatever.
Yeah.
You could have been.
And you could be hiccuping your way right through the Stargate.
And the second time I did it, he goes like this. He looks at me and he goes... like 2 strikes. 2 strikes.
Oh, wow, that's terrifying.
And I'm staring at him going, okay, what do I do? And all I did was just kind of stay there.
Because in fairness, if it's a scene where you don't have dialogue, and many takes, it can get
Ellie,
Well, he's not even in the same room.
I wasn't even in the scene. I wasn't in the scene. I was in a room outside of the scene. But he was like, well, you should watch this. You can't close your eyes if I'm directing. Watch what I do. Watch me. What are you doing closing your eyes?
Did he come back?
He never did. No.
So that was pretty much his
He directed a bunch of Atlantis.
You over him.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So,
But you know what? I'm glad they did, because, well, we wouldn't be doing this, really, quite frankly. It's going to be fun.
We're strolling you.
it'd be great. I mean, it would be great if we just kept walking and walked
Right into the water.
Right into the water.
You know what?
Like Bruce Stern at the end.
Comedy, are you?
I will watch.
At the end of Coming Home.
Gary, just start stripping down right now. I don't think anybody wants to see that. I've seen him.
No.
It's quite hairy.
No.
I wouldn't do that. That's quite Harriman. Look at this.
You know what? The camera guys are going to go in the ocean.
What is that? Is that someone's underwear? What's going on here?
Can you throw it for me?
Yeah. Well, fetch.
Yeah. Oh. Atta girl.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
They're
Al.
improv artists.
All right,
This
guys.
is beautiful.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know what? I just think it's so great that there's this whole pool of fans that are supporting performers like me and you guys, like Vancouver performers, and that they could actually have the pull to make this series come back to the
That's
city.
the thing that amazes
Crazy,
me. I've
eh?
heard so many over the years fans at conventions going, oh, are they going to do it again? They're going to, and I was
Oh, yeah.
like, how is that possible? Like, you can't put lightning in a bottle twice, and here they are doing it again.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the fans. The fans
listen, they
made it
brought
happen.
Carson back. They can bring Stargate back, and absolutely, you know, amazing that they are. And honestly, like, I can speak for all of us and all the actors that had a chance to work on the show and the crews that have. It's been a great show. It's been a great journey, and watching families get together and go to conventions and grow up with them and all over the world. And what a special! I'm so happy for all of you that get to see the new Stargate. Whenever it comes out, it's going to be awesome. And so we're thrilled to be part of it. Yeah, and thank you.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Nice. Thank you very much. Beckett out.